I've been talking a lot about have a plan, make a plan, so that you can take a direction that makes sense and that it's effective, instead of just going working on your trees just randomly by feel. Now it's spring in California. Basically, I'd say that our spring is basically 2 months ahead of other states or some states. And although this spring was very different than the others, I have already talked about that in other videos. So getting back to what's important here. So at this stage, we already know that repot is done in early spring or late winter. Major bends in work, trimming, cutbacks, in my opinion, should be done in fall. So we're in spring, and I'm looking to the next stage. And normally my next stage is actually just fall. I just let the trees grow because spring and summer come so fast that temperatures go at 85 Fahrenheit, the trees shut down, and you really shouldn't be working on trees on temperatures that high. So generally speaking, I try not to work on any tree below 50 Fahrenheit or above 75 Fahrenheit, around that. I think 75 is my kind of limit to go. Now this spring was very different. First of all, we had a very long fall, a very short winter. Spring-like temperatures lasted for maybe a week or two, and all of a sudden we had summer temperatures, and now we're back to spring temperatures going to drop on the high 60s to 70s to low 70s. So what happens is that this year I actually have a chance to plan for a spring work. A late spring work would be the normal thing to do in other states that have more balanced weather without so much extreme temperatures. And now I'm in this situation where I look at the weather and I see 2 weeks of a drop of temperature to those numbers, and I'm hoping that it will hold for at least 2 others, so I can have like a spring-like month. Now what happens is that my trees opened up, pushed buds, not all of them, some maples are behind, but they had growth already. They had spring-like growth. They're already hardening, they're maturing, and it gives me the opportunity to make another work, which is just cut back to promote ramification. Now we're only going to do that in trees that are at a stage that is worthy of that, because otherwise we're going to cut back and set back the tree where it stalls, or if it's just in early stages, it doesn't allow it to develop because we're constantly cutting back, so it's not going to go there. So let's go around the garden. I'm going to show you just very fast, basically 3 areas that I have, and then I can talk in particular about each one of the trees. And I think it's going to be very interesting because I have so many different stages in so many different health stage of trees that I can give this sense of a tree that you just purchased, or something that's in early stages, then a little more developed, and then almost in refinement, then particular situations that didn't went very well, or I have to be careful with. Let's go and check out the garden. In this area we have maples. I have some shades too, because they need protection due to the high temperatures of the summer. And you can see some a little more developed than others, but they're fairly all young, except the ones in the back are even younger, and some are already bonsai pods, some are in development. Going over here on this side, I have my Chinese elm, and I have 3 varieties that I know that this is a chochobai, but I'm not even sure about the other ones, and then I start the elms. And the trees under are more into a development stage. You can see it up there, just new root cuttings, a lot of young material. I have an orange tree, just for the fun of it. And we have pomegranates. and some very young Japanese black pines. We got some junipers, juniper, all kinds of different styles. Then a massive juniper, and more junipers, more black pines, and then we have 3 Japanese maples that I'm testing the new location because it seems like it's working. There's a lot of humidity in that area over there. So I have very different locations over here, a little more protected, but in the afternoon for the Chinese elms, then fully exposed to sun the whole day basically, and then the Japanese maples, which only get sun in the morning. And I have an automatic water system, rain like on top, that I can set up automatically. A very interesting thing that I hear a lot is about when to water and overwatering and all that. I have an automatic system with different varieties of species, and I believe that it's more about your soil choice than anything else. I rarely see my trees being overwatered, even though they get watered the same amount on junipers and deciduous. It's just that my deciduous soil has 2 parts of akadama, and my juniper soil has 1 part of akadama. So less absorption, more airflow, and that would not really allow an overwatering that easy. So let's talk about an interesting thing that I don't hear a lot. The tip of the leaves, the young growth, produces a hormone that is called auxin. That hormone is then transported to the roots and promotes root growth. The roots, the young root, the feeder roots, produce an hormone called cytokinin, and that hormone flows through the tree and promotes young growth. From what I understand, and I've done some research, cytokinin and auxin kind of work on a balance and kind of on the flow strength against each other. Meaning, if there's a lot of feeder roots or a lot of root development, but little young growth, the roots will push the hormone or will overcome the auxin flow and promote growth on the leaves. And if there's a lot of leaves or a lot of young growth and the roots are unbalanced and not producing so much cytokinin, then the auxin will flow and promote root growth. And that makes a lot of sense when you think about it. That's why we repot in spring. In spring, the tree will push new growth. You cut the roots, the new growth is already coming out. That was already in an energy store during the winter or fall or the previous year to promote that growth. And as it pushes that, we've done the repot, and there's root promotion, root growth promotion immediately. At the same time, when we cut back, we shouldn't cut back at the same time as a repot, or not very heavy, or not, for example, on junipers, we should not be cutting all the tips because that's the young growth, right? So if we cut back, but we didn't repot before, there was this mass of roots that are ready to produce cytokinin, and you just cut the tips or you just cut back on your tree. What happens? There's no auxin being produced, so there's a flow of cytokinin and a new growth promoted. So this all makes sense, and this has all to be thought in terms of when you look at the tree. What does it look like it's happening? Is the tree healthy? Is the tree pushing? Is the tree in an energy state, a positive energy state that allows you to do that kind of work or not? So that's why we talk about your tree needs to be healthy and on an energy positive state to pardon, for you to work on. Now, if you work on a weak tree, then think about the inverse of what I just said. You're just stalling the tree, and it will take a lot longer to recover and to get to that positive state of healthiness. So, considering that is very important. We'll see several examples as I'm going to go through each tree. Let's start with this very young material with seedlings that I purchased. The first thing I want to do is establish it in a growing pot, in this case pond basket. And pond baskets are really incredible, and you'll see the difference between using a pond basket or not later on. I'm just going to let you know that pond basket allows the roots to grow, have more airflow. They will need more water. More water means more nutrition, nutrients, and also more fertilizing possibilities. Everything, airflow, and the roots will not grow in a pot like the other ones, where the normal pot they will start circling in the bottom and create a mesh. On the other hand, the roots will not grow because they cannot grow over there. They cannot turn and get tangled. It will actually promote finer roots to the feeder roots to the center of the tree, and that will eventually promote a lot of growth in the canopy. There's nothing to do here. Just let it grow, let it thicken, and once you start seeing the style that you're going to go through, that's when you start making decisions about cutting back. Cutting back right now, anything will just really set back the tree. You can cut back a little or eliminate branches that make absolutely no sense in fall, but it's growth season, and I just wanted to explode in growth and develop, thicken, and hopefully create ramification, and I'll start seeing in what direction I'll go. From that point on, that's where we want to define, okay, I want this tree to be this tall, like showing size. I want the tree to be this big, and go for another informal style or any other style. But at some point, if you want to make decisions about what to cut or how to style wire your tree, you'll have to define first height and style that you want to adopt. That is very important. Just don't go for the tree, just start cutting back just because. Take goals. First goal, thicken and define the style that you're going to go for. And then once it has thickened enough, then you can go and start working on ramification. For example, this tree last year was super overgrown overall, and the trunk gained at least half an inch of growth in one season, which is great. And I was able to cut it back because I wanted to try to do a more show-him style on this one. Still, I'm still thickening it up in a development pot, but I've already cut back, like from something that was like that. I'm already. The tree in the back, I could have it in a growing pot. I didn't put it because it was late in season, and I decided to keep it that way. The style is already defined, the height is basically defined. If you can see, I have a sacrificial branch because I want this tree to gain more thickness. I will eventually put it in a development pot. And I have an interesting thing coming up here, which is this growth here. So I will create actually another tree, another trunk here, and try to make a more complex style. Right underneath this one, and that one are not my trees, but these trees were neglected in terms of watering. The style was defined to achieve the style that I want to go for, which is not this has to thicken, and actually it's going to be probably a informal upright tree. So we had to cut back because it was mostly dead, and this is a restart, which means this had a major setback. There's nothing to do here, just let it grow and let it develop. Same situation over here. There's really nothing to do, just let it grow, let it develop, and then we'll start styling once the tree is back to health. Right now, this is the example of a negative state of health. This would be a positive state of health. just like positive step in health. Moving on to this one. Now I repotted this tree, and normally when you repot, you want to be careful. There's a saying that you should only do one intervention per year. If you repot, you're not going to start cutting back or trim back, and that is mostly true. If in a normal circumstances, I'd be just letting this tree go through the year, and then in fall I could cut back for the next season to be ready to have a structure that's ready for the next spring. What happens is that this tree is already starting to elongate a lot. So what happens is that when I repotted, I did almost like a slate pot. It was a very small pot that this tree had. So I basically just put in this pot, arranged the edge of the roots slightly, and because I didn't make any drastic intervention in the roots, this tree exploded in growth, and what you can see is a lot of elongation on the tips. So I am not going to do a strong cutback, but I will control the elongation, and I will control that also to allow sun exposure to the inward growth, so that I can have more ramification and promote that tertiary whatever's ramification, and fill out all the space, and then in fall try to get some negative spaces and everything in better pads and all that. I can eliminate upward, total straight upward growth, downward growth, or inward growth towards the trunk from each side, but there's really not much I want to cut back. I'm not cutting back branches. I'll probably be controlling elongation. That's from this season. Over here, I still want to let it grow, and that's why it's so high. Ideally, this is actually the back. Let me show you the front. I want eventually to create a silhouette that it's along this line. Right now it's too tall, but it's needed so that I can get some bark coming up, because this actually came from the cuttings of this tree, which means that I could totally cut this and plant and have more cuttings. Anyway, this tree was also repotted, so there's really not much to do here. It's just a little cut back on the elongations, and more with the perspective of having ramification development, but I will not be cutting back the trunks, right? I still want it to gain thickness, and the reason it's on this spot is because there's really no other option to make a composition of this nature in a development pot and then put it so close to each other in this big pot. It will likely not be possible. We have a grapevine here that has had some issues, and it's probably not going to survive, which is surprising. But last year I found out that there was an ant's nest in it. I repotted when I think I should have repotted, but it doesn't seem like it's going to make it. It's surprising to me. I don't lose a lot of trees, but it seems like that's what's going to happen here. So very different than that situation. Over here we have a young cord bark elm that was root cutting, and you can see that I'm letting the trunks just elongate, and that's because I want more thickness, and that's my priority here. It's gain thickness, and if I start cutting back the elongation on this one, I will prevent that from happening so much this year. So this is just to let it go untouched. At some point I will stop the development of thickness on this one and cut it back, because this is going to be a small one, and then the big one would be cut later on when it's thicker than the other one, to show that difference in thickness. But right now I really don't want to do anything. I have to not allow myself to fall into the temptation of constantly be trimming back, because I'm only stalling the growth of the tree, and you never know when things change in terms of styling. I can still go in a different direction once I see that thickness and where the branches grew and what's all about it. And this is a perfect example of that. And I'm gonna tell you the story of it. But before, you can see root cuttings here. We're done this spring with the repot. Nothing to do here. Although I could reduce this to just 1, 2, or 3 chunks. At this point, I just want it to be strong to gain strength in the roots system, and later on in fall I can cut back or make decisions about style. But right now I'm really not interested in anything like that, because we never know what the tree is going to give it to you. Now, talking about the difference between these two. This tree was originally in a smaller pot. It was stalling the growth. It would put leaves out, but it would not elongate. And I decided that it was time to recover some health, so I put in this development pot again in hopes to create ramification. But as I was saying that one, we don't know what's going to happen, and we don't know if the style yet is the exact style that we're thinking of. So in this one, I actually changed my mind. I had it as a semi-cascade, and now I'm moving more towards building this gnarly branch over here, the primary branch, but then making it a taller tree, and at the same time letting this thicken more gnarly. I will eventually raise the roots a little more, making it more exposed. So it's a process, it's evolution, it's always changing. The trees are always changing, because once you think that you're set up with a style, you'll see that as the tree develops more, there's might be more possibilities. And once we put in a bonsai pot, we're trying to keep it in that state. Eventually they can get weaker, like it happened here. Now I'm back to developing, and who knows. So don't concede to that urge of cutting back, because you might change your point of view. Obviously this one, I don't want to touch it, but this one I want to control that elongation, and I wanted to start promoting more ramification in all this area. For example, this one is going to be a little more untouched, and that's because I want it to thicken and develop more. Same situation as before. But root cuttings. And now we have another interesting comparison. This tree was basically basically the same story as this one, but on this one I did a repot this spring, and I decided to this root was connected to this one, and this one was connected to this one. So this was all part of the root system, was all part of this main one. When I cut it back, because now I want to change from a semi-cascade to a raft style tree, I cut this with the intention of creating 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more trees multi-trunk. What happened? If you see the leaves here, because it lost so much root that was feeding into the tree, these leaves stalled. You don't see the elongation. The same elongation is there. This is the perfect example that when we touch the roots in a severe way, it's not a good idea to go now and cut back. The tree is already it went to a negative state of energy. You put out the growth, it's holding, and now you're going to cut back again, and what happens? There's no energy to supply that, so it's going to stall even more. No, now I just wanted to get stable, produce enough roots, so that then we can see the elongation on the branches, just like this. We don't have that, right? So I think it shows really the difference of impact depending on the kind of job that you're doing to the tree. Here we got another root cutting, and all these are root cuttings. All these are root cuttings from that main tree. Some from that, because I did this year, and it gave me these root cuttings. But the older ones are all from that tree, done in the past 3 to 5 years. Right, very young material. I did some twists and all that. I was playing around. I have a style that I am trying to follow. I'm not extremely happy about it, but the point is that no, let's not touch this tree. We're totally in the initial state of development. I can set the wire because it's important to, on these Chinese elms, to if you want to do some twists and bends, to wire it while young, because they tend to get brittle over time. But there's no cutting back here. There's really nothing to do except let it grow. All right, here we have another one that was almost like a sleep pot. Actually had a root connected here, which is, if I'm not wrong, this one. Or no, is it? I think no, it's this one exactly. Yeah, this one came from there. So we lost a little bit of a root mass, but it's developing very well. It has elongation, so it shows that it's still in a positive state of energy. I can go cut back a little and build up ramification. Root cutting, nothing to do. Elongate, let it go. This tree is a very interesting story. If you see one of my previous videos, you'll see an air layer, the root cuttings that came out from this tree, and then I repotted. The roots were looking amazing. I used a pond basket as well for the air layer, and I'm super happy with the results. I think that's my to go from here in the future, because it allows you a lot of support, a lot of feeder roots, a lot of fine roots immediately. And I put in this pot, and there's no showing of recession. There's no stalling. The tree is growing, it's elongating. Do I want to do something here? No. And that's because the branches are fairly young, thin, and you want to have taper in the trunks, but you also want to have taper in the branches. So you gotta let them elongate first to then cut back. So I can think about that maybe in fall if they're at the thickness that I want. For example, this one is already thicker. I can cut it back, but not right now. This is going to be the lower trunk, and this is going to be a higher one. I already know the style and the height. I'm just letting it get to the thickness first so that I can start working on ramification once I have the thickness on the branches, in this case, that I'm looking for. All right, big sacrificial branch. If you look at this one, it was also it actually came from this one. He had an extra tree on the pot. It was very small, and he turned to this bigger one. Big sacrificial branch over here. If you see this is all to eliminate in the future. What I want is create thickness here, and then I already have the style. It's going to be a Shohin kind of style on this elm. It's going to be about this high over here, but I need to let it elongate. I need to get thickness there, and this one is particular because it's going to thicken all the bottom of the trunk up to this point. Then I'll just chop it off. So nothing to do here, just let it elongate one more time. Same here, there's no thickness. These are going to be some clumps. The style is going to be just applied different heights, and then the pads different. It looks very simple, very not interesting at the moment, but I can guarantee you that once I start getting thickness in branches and pads, it's going to look great. I don't have a special plan for this one. I might even add it to the composition with that. Who knows? I have an idea. I have a crazy idea. I can show you. Let me go get some. So I'm not a huge fan of fantasy bonsai with figurines and all that kind of stuff, but I've been thinking about something recently that I found and I find interesting. All right. So the plan with these root cuttings that are just sprouting is that, or even with this one, but I don't think this one will be it because it's already too thickened. But imagine this on a pot with this young shoot starting to run over the legs and in the arms, and just, you know, the karate kind of thing going on, and just intertwined there, and then some exposed roots coming off from the legs. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of this kind of stuff, but just for the fun of it, because I already have so many different styles, I think I might pursue that. So next spring and even maybe in fall, I can start thinking about the wiring. How will I wire it, and on the repot set it on the roots, so that creates that kind of a martial art kind of fantasy thing, right? So my orange tree, nothing really special about this. This was an earlier that I've done probably 3 or 5 years ago. It hasn't been developing very well. It's starting to show some growth. It's not something that I'm particularly interested on, but it will have an informal style eventually if it keeps developing. It does have an interesting deadwood that needs some carving and some restyling, make it more interesting. It's nothing that I'm planning on doing anything whatsoever. I just wanted to grow, you know, ground for now and fill up, because it's been fairly weak through all this time. And that's because fruit trees are prone to diseases, and it's constantly getting some kind of bugs that reduce the leaves and this fall. I'm trying to control that better now with insecticide and fungicide granules that you put there. I mean, I don't have a specific plan for this, because I don't see it happening in the near future. Over here we have pomegranates. I purchased this tree along with this one at the same time. This one's been putting growth very well. You cut back the growth, and you cut back and it grows again. This one stalled a little, and that's because the top of the tree was broken with a squirrel probably that went on the tree and fell down. So eventually I will rebuild it, and right now I just want it to be strong. In its spring growth, it's elongating well, but I don't feel like it's that strong push, that healthy growth. I think it's still in a negative state. Eventually I'll either use this as the trunk and build around here the branching, or I may do an approach graft over here, let it stick, and then come from here. It makes more sense to me, and then utilize this as a secondary ramification trunk over there. Nothing special to do on these guys. They're too young, they're not thick, they need to develop, right? It doesn't make sense to me at all that when I get a younger tree like this, you start cutting it like you're styling a developed tree, like I would say the first case over there in the bottom. So let them grow, let them thicken. You never know what's going to happen. We have obviously a style here, and it's been growing very well, so I had some cutbacks already, and the idea is to get a main branch on this side, and then this will develop into the main rounded kind of pomegranate, typical fruit tree. Alright, we got something that went wrong here. I already explained in the video before. It was about me applying horticultural oil that burned the needles. This is like this because if a tree is sick, you really don't want to do anything. I'm just letting it. Junipers go in the sun when they're sick, or they stay on the sun when they're sick. Deciduous go in shade, and I'm just seeing if they are able to recover. Looks like the back one is in a very bad condition, but it might survive because as long as I have new growth coming, because it's spring, it's a possibility. We have a lot of Japanese black pine in the bottom, and there's nothing to do to these guys. What you can see here is the clear evidence. They're all about 3 years old. and the clear evidence of having in small pots. This was done this year, so ignore it, but it was like this, and this was put in a growth pot the previous year, so you can see double or triple growth on those ones, and then same age trees but just not so developed or more tight. And there are several things here. These ones I want to develop the trunk, thicken up. These ones I was more interested in see if I can build more ramification tighter instead of having it elongate like what happens here. I would have smaller needles and shoots coming out. This is to turning into exposed root over time, and this is not. All right, informal upright forest. The two smaller trees were wired in fall. The other one was purchased later, so it was not wired down. So I'm not putting wire because it's not the right time. I don't want to make strong bends right now. Although I could kind of with some young material and thin branches, but it makes more sense to me just let it develop. Let it be strong first. It's all suffering a little bit of that horticultural oil on the smaller trees, not the big one because I didn't have it. And I'm just letting it develop. A cool idea I had, if I ever get to accomplish that, is to put this on a slab and have a custom mirror sculpture behind with large rectangles in different angles, in different positions that reflect the trees, and instead of a three tree group, you'll have the illusion of having a forest behind due to the mirror reflection. And I've never seen that done, but I think if I find someone that can work with glass and metal, even I can do that. I believe if I put my hands to, it would be very interesting to see something a little different. Imagine a natural slab, like I don't have it here, I have it on my maples, but natural slab, and then just some mirrors, rusty metal in some frame. I don't know, I feel like it would be very interesting. Alright, this juniper was repotted last year. This is probably Itoigawa, slow growing tree. It was styled in fall or restyled again. The foliar pads are there, it has enough green mass, but it's not in a positive state of energy. There's really not much to do here except letting it elongate and get volume on the pads. I don't have plans for the future except a repot later on to adjust the positional needle and building pads that make sense and turning into something more complex than it is. Over here we have the only tanuki I kept. I used to do, or in the beginning of my journey, I did a few tanukis. My first videos are about making tanukis and carving deadwood, driftwood, and I kept this one. It was the only one because I got a little tired of the idea of tanuki, but I wanted to keep one that I felt it was worthy of it. And I believe that this is going to be spectacular once I get it to the point that I want. And right now it's so overdeveloped because what I'm trying to do is gain thickness of the trunk, because I still want to fill this gap. And once I fill out this gap, then it would make more sense to me. Then I'll cut back and I'll make this into a very reduced foliar elongated pads with the main feature of the deadwood that you can see right now. But it's pretty cool, and I still need to carve to make it a more natural look in the bottom because it's very straight. But for now, really nothing, and just let it go, let it develop, let it get thickness. All right, we have this little rowdy. the only literati I have, and I was able to put it in a position that I think I'm almost happy with. I feel like I still have a little twist to do in trunk that I want to make it slightly more natural, but really I just want to elongate pads, bring it more to a third of the height on the bottom and thin up the whole canopy. There's on top a branch that I will most likely kill, but I'll make a dead feature out of it to make it more interesting. You can also have a gene somewhere, but I don't at this point. I still wanted to recover. It had a repot and I still wanted to be in a more healthy condition. I don't believe it's there yet. I don't see strong spring growth. I see some growth, but nothing really spectacular. This tree was getting weak in the small pot that it was. I find it amazing, but due to not being healthy, I was starting to lose some interest. And again, as we look at the trees over and over again, our idea might change in terms of style, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. I'm going to have it probably slider up a little, and then I want to compact. I want to reduce and compact, because what's happening is that the canopy green proportion in terms of the trunk doesn't make sense. But if I actually reduce and do some dead features with those branches, lower branches, I can just make a nice smaller triangular shape here that I think it's gonna look a lot better. Am I gonna do it now? No, absolutely not. The tree is weak. I want it to recover. If by any chance he has some very strong development throughout the year, maybe I'll do it in fall. It's gonna come down to, do I see growth coming strong or not? All right, this big guy. I'm not going to talk about this big guy. That's because I have at least 2 or 3 videos previous to this one. That's exactly what's my plan. I'm super excited. I'm super pumped. I've found things in this tree that now make a lot of sense to take that direction that I talk about on the video. That will enhance the older features of the tree, that will make it a lot more natural looking. It's going to be great. I did a major thing, which was placing it in pot in the right position, which is not exactly, if you can see, it's higher on the front now because I want to move that position a little. But the branch selection, this big bend, this was a straight branch over here. All that was worked on. The branches that are selected, that are growing, elongating, are exactly where they should be. It's going to be tremendous. And I also want to bring up this back part. I want to have some growth there. This growth over here can go to the back just to make it more interesting. You can come back from here, but am I going to get back or start styling right now? No. And the reason this branch, for example, is so high, because it comes down here, that's where it should be. The reason it's so high is because if you put the branches down, the growth will actually slow down a little. But if you promote them to put them up here, you'll see that it starts elongating as much. There's a lot more elongation here than here, and that's because of the position of the trunk or the branch. Right, this guy. This guy is healthy. He didn't have a repot, but the style is not quite there yet. It's almost, but there's too much to the top here. In terms of the container proportion, I need this to be a little lower. I need to also make some twists and some movement that seems more natural, that seems more interesting, and find some negative space. I still don't have that, but it's not something to be done now. It's something to be done in fall, because it requires some twists and bends and probably a very big reduction of the foliar mass, and I don't want to take that chance now. I want to do it in fall so that the tree has reserves enough that in the next spring it will push again and bring it. If I cut it back down now, it might react good, but the bending is not going to be right. I first have to bend it and put it in the right place, so it wouldn't make sense for me to start working on it now, weakening a little. There's no thickness on the trunk as well, if you see, so the primary goals are not there. I probably shouldn't have it even in this pot. I should have it in the development pot, so I might regress to that in the future, in next spring. Who knows? But really the plan is don't touch and let's work in the right time. All right, this guy was an air layer from the back branch over there. Nothing to be done here. This tree is too young. Eventually I will bend and compact the apex. It's not to be done now because it's spring. Again, major bends I do it in fall. The one in the back needs to fill out more for the next stage. It's not very interesting. It needs a better apex, centered most likely around here. It needs to fill up some gaps. The branches look laggy. I hope that I opened enough back in fall so that it promotes inner growth or back budding, and that's what I'm aiming for. So I don't want to do anything about it right now. But this is going to be very interesting. This is going to be cool. You can see the wire marks. So these wire marks, after you do a shari origin, this can turn into very spectacular movements on the tree. I don't like this vertical here. This should have been different. Even this one. My mistake here. But I believe that as it builds bark, you won't really notice, and it might even look somewhat cool. Japanese black pine. Japanese black pine, they're opening the needles right now. There's nothing to be done. Japanese black pine is very particular with very specific timings. If I was to be done, something would be in the end of May, June, to cut back the needles to promote bifurcation or ramification. The tree needs to be very healthy to do that, and this tree is now getting back to health, but it's not at that point where I would try that. What I really want is just to gain more mass. All right, the front two ones, there's a lot of twists and bends, and again the growth on these trees kind of stopped because it's in a smaller pot. If it was in a growing container, it would probably benefit a lot, but I decided to be more patient on these ones and try to promote these small branches, tighter ramification. Let's see what happens. Same thing, it's Japanese black pines, specific timing. We're at a point on this one that I will compact that apex in fall. If the tree is very healthy, I might consider cut back in May or June, but and I think it might happen because this tree is not unhealthy. I'm not sure if it's in a position where I want to do that kind of work, just because it might be a little root bound. I didn't repot this year because it was too late and the temperature was too off, and I didn't want to take that chance. Japanese maple. Here we go. All my Japanese maples. At this point, I think you already know the answer. Thickness and let it develop. There's really not much to do here. I eliminated a couple branches that were really not making sense back in fall, and by now I just wanted to develop. I just wanted to gain girth. Over here, a little different situation. You can see that the apex is very developed, and the bottom of the tree, which is a fusion of various several seedlings. The apex got to develop, and at this point I might consider I have to cut back just to promote inner growth and light to go to be closer to the trunk. But I have to be moderate. It's still young. I still want it to fuse all over the place, and I just want to be in girth. So if I do something, it's just for the just to promote that inner growth and those inner shoots that can be obstructed if I leave our canopy blocking the light. Kind of a clump there, clump forest mix in between two. I'm still waiting for thickness, all that. Nothing special to do here. Again, in fall I've selected just eliminated a few branches, and it was just because it wouldn't make absolutely no sense to do. The rest of the tree I'm letting it elongate, I'm letting it grow tall, and that's because I still want thickness, and then I have to get back some time, but it's far from that. So Japanese maple forests and others. Okay, so this forest is a little late in terms of spring. We already have some ramification. I still want thickness in basically all of them. I have some elongating more than others. There's absolutely nothing to do here. I mean, I can look at some branches, see if they're thick already to a point that I want to cut them back to promote ramification, but I seem to, if I do that, I will not be promoting thickness on the trunk itself so easy. So it's more of a balance of light to reach at some point the interior of the leaves, but we're getting late in season, so it's not likely that I'm going to do that. Completely opposite here, where I have a tremendous amount of green already. And if I want to have that inner growth in those very thin trees, getting light to make them strong and healthy and develop, I really have to thin up the apex to allow that. Am I going to cut the trunk apex? No, I want to gain thickness, so I'm going to leave the trunk. I'm not going to cut it back lower. I'm going to leave the top apex so that elongates and then gets some development. And basically the same story of these two goes for the others. In this case I'll cut back the apex, but most likely on any of the other ones I will cut back, because if they're not ready by this time, by the time they're ready we're almost in summer and temperature's going to be way too hot. If they put shoots at that time, they will burn and it will not work. It will actually probably have some dieback. And in the back you see some younger material that there's nothing to do here. Just let it go. Let it thicken. Let it thicken. Let it thicken. Same situation. This is just some Japanese black pine seeds I'm trying to grow. And we have here a thread graft that I can see already 2 or 3 branches there that survived. I am very hopeful that I can improve this tree because it's not looking good. Most likely do a narrow layer in between those thread grafts and the upper part of the tree, and I'll have 2 other trees, a very thick one and one already with a lot of ramification and twist and turns. Oh, lastly, example of disaster. Remember I said something about the horticultural oil? Well, this was the result. Many people, if they're inexperienced, they would have thrown this tree out in the trash when it was at its worst. But there's really just one thing you can do here. Wait, keep monitoring water and see if there's some spring growth that comes up, and that's what happened here. I didn't touch anything because there's still a possibility of growth, and eventually I believe that it will return. It's isolated from the other ones because this is the tree that started everything with some scale Let's see. I'm not sure if it's gonna eliminate all the scale by the treatment that I applied, but I'm hopeful, and there's nothing to do but to wait. That's it. So I hope that I gave you a little bit of a perspective of different stages of trees, different options, or a way of thinking that makes sense, so that when we have a plan, we can decide what time of the year we're going to do it, and what stage of development and healthiness of your tree do we need to support those interventions. I believe that I was able to do that. If you have any questions, just let me know. There are a few videos of bonsai courses that I've made very early on, a few seasons ago, and if you also look at other videos from other years, you'll see the same trees, very enveloped, and I hope that you can see the difference of the trees today comparing to what it was back a few years. And my garden is not that old. I restarted bonsai in 2017 or 18. I've been more active, and I had better conditions from 2 years ago to now, although I had more trees at the time, but this is how I manage my garden, and I hope that it will help some of you that may be starting this journey.